I know there are a few people in the group who are new to shamanism, which is great. I'm so happy to have you here. And I'm just going to assume that you know nothing about shamanism, and I'm going to do my best in a very succinct and efficient way to just give you a little bit of a frame of reference of what we're doing here and what it means to relate to this cleanse in a shamanic way. So to start, I just want to say a few words about what is shamanism. Shamanism is considered to be the world's oldest form of spirituality. It is something that evolved with humanity and emerged. It's believed that it actually emerged when humanity began, that they sort of evolved together. This spiritual way of viewing the world, of relating to the world. And it's believed that it actually came out of a need to survive, to know what is safe, to know when danger is coming, to know what food is okay to eat, to know when bad weather is on the way, those sorts, to know where to find water, etc., etc. That what happened was the early peoples on our planet began to realize that there was this material world that we experience with our five senses, smell, sight, touch, hearing, feeling, and that's one world, but actually that there's another world, which is the spirit world, and it can't be perceived with our ordinary senses, but that it's actually very, very real and very powerful. And so there are these two worlds, and that the spirit world is a place where almost like all potential and all possibility exists, where there's immense amounts of healing available, love, wisdom, all sorts of anything really you could want exists in the unseen world. And that this material world is just simply a projection of one possibility of what exists in the unseen world. And so the early peoples worked with the spirit world as one of their primary resources for their survival when someone became sick, to bring in healing, and developed these ways of sort of courting like, romantic, but building a relationship with the spirits. And there's a great spirit, but then there are individual spirits, sort of like animal, you might be aware of animal spirits or earth spirits, or working with the water spirits or the weather spirits or the mountain spirits, and so on and so on, and recognizing that there's the great spirit, but then there's unique ways of working with and relating to spirits, and that different aspects of the great spirit carried different medicines and different potentials and could help them in different ways, and on and on and on, and learning how to build these relationships and keep harmony and keep the tribe safe, keep people well, and these sorts of things. Ceremonies emerged, different practices emerged, and then of course shamans emerged too, which is like the word for a medicine person, or like a very masterful healer within the tribe who happen to have a particular proclivity for this way of being like a bridge, who walks in both worlds, who has a foot firmly planted in the spirit world and a foot firmly planted in the material world, and that they, because of that ability to hold both, to have that awareness, and really this awareness is available to all people. It's just that the shamans and medicine people were very masterful at it, and so they were often looked to when someone needed healing, when the people needed guidance about, what should we do? Well, let's have a ceremony, let's pray about it, let's ask the spirits, and then we'll do that. And so one of the interesting things that I'll just mention is that the practices, the shamanic ways of being were unique to each set of peoples based on their relationship to the land. That environment, the people who lived in the mountains had powerful relationships with the mountain spirits, whereas the people who emerged in the jungles had powerful relationships with the plants, because there are plants everywhere, and then they basically were living in a pharmacy. And so different stories about their ways of relating to spirit, how the spirits work with them. Every tribe, every people's had its own practices, very unique to it, that were also unique to the landscape that they evolved in. And yet, these peoples in the beginning of time who didn't know one another, had no contact with one another, there are so many patterns in the way that they would work with spirit. And so that's sort of the common threads that exist across shamanic cultures, are really what's maybe thought of as like shamanism today, or core shamanism or neo-shamanism, is that more universal, the more universal qualities of relating to the spirit world that seem to show up throughout indigenous nature-based spiritualities around the world. And so what's another really interesting thing is that, like I said, it's believed that these practices originated out of a need to survive, and now in the last 50-ish years, we're starting to see a resurgence of shamanic ways in modern civilization, that the world's existing indigenous people, a number of tribes are starting to share and offer their wisdom and their ways of being to modern Western people who are interested. And in my view, this isn't a coincidence. We happen to be, as a species, in another time in our history where we need to learn to survive. It's a whole new set of issues. Before it was what's safe to eat, how do we get well when someone's sick, how do we know weather that's coming, and those sorts, questions like that. How do we protect ourselves from wild animals, whatever it might be, very basic survival questions. Well, now we're in this phase in our history where we're facing a huge question as a global species, as a global community, which is, how do we survive climate change? How do we survive the changes that are coming, and how do we change ourselves as a gigantic communal species that has had an impact on the earth that the earth has never seen before? How do we dream a new dream and find a new way of relating to our planet, to one another, in a way that's going to be harmonious and create a new way of being in this current evolution of who we've become. And so there's a huge opportunity here to, instead of trying to solve this problem through the intellect and through the egoic mind, which I think in many ways is what brought us to this place as a species, is the overdevelopment of the ego and the rational mind, and we could do this, let's do this, and the huge impact that we've had on the planet is to start creating and relating to the planet in a different way, and to also call on the spirit world to help us survive, to help us dream a new dream, to help us bring into being what we want consciously, what we're intending to create, rather than the disharmony that we're currently experiencing. And so these shamanic practices, which are very ancient, have have the potential to I believe, help us create a new world, and one that's really informed by a wisdom that's much grander than us as individuals. So that is something that's really underlying philosophy of this cleanse, is that each one of us has the potential to offer something to this great transition that we're in as a species, to bring our unique expression of ourselves, our higher selves, our creative selves, to contribute to where are we going to go, what are we going to do with this, how are we going to make change. And to do that in a shamanic way requires really deep listening. You know, one of the ways to listen to the spirit world is to listen to our own spirits, that each one of us is an aspect of the Great Spirit, and we carry within us unique medicine that only we can bring forward into the world. And so making space to listen to our spirits, making space to ask for support from the spirit realm, our spirit guides and allies, listening to the earth and what she's needing, what she's dreaming, making these, it's almost like a co-collaborative. It's like a collaboration between us as an aspect of the Great Spirit, so you as an aspect of the Great Spirit, and the rest of the Great Spirit. Like, what do you want to dream together? What is Spirit dreaming through you? And what is the earth dreaming through you? And how can you dream together is maybe the best way of saying it, to help shepherd in a new way of being on our planet.